welcome back to another Black City Coffee vlog. Hey, thanks for all the nice messages, man. Like, wow. Unexpected, very nice of you. I love all the really great support. Really nice, genuine words of understanding, support, love, caring, some disappointment. Yes, I get that. But really, really just all good and good vibes. So I thank you for that. Oops, I thank you for that. And that makes me feel even better. You know, I felt really good already, and I felt responsible to be honest with you guys. You know, I think that was the right decision too, to just make a video about it, and then just hearing what you guys had to say, like, you did care. So I want to be, I want to respect that for sure. But yeah, the vlog continues. You can still buy coffee from me. You can still send me coffee to cup if you want, if you still value this dialogue or discussion or discovery. That's cool too. I'm still going to make content. It maybe won't be like every day, like hard hitting as I was trying to do. That was pretty tough. I knew it was going to be, but now it's like kind of come away. Anyway, so in this video, I went to a cafe. I never go to a cafe, typically because I'm very particular about my coffee. And we'll get into this. I think this is a good conversation to have, which is like, or trying new coffees or going to a cafe versus like, say, trying coffee from somebody like me, and the pros and cons of that, I think, and trying to look at it as a roaster, as a coffee drinker, like a daily coffee drinker, like a religious coffee drinker, and somebody who's ironically just doesn't go to cafes, and I'll explain why. But we're gonna cup this. So I picked this guy up. We happened to come upon it next to one of our favorite pastry places down in Tustin, but it's from China. And I saw that Bodhi Leaf Coffee first was offering China. That was the first sort of blip on my radar in terms of a coffee coming from China. Now, why is coffee from China like exciting, or why did I even get it? We haven't seen any coffee from China ever. I think maybe some few, like, it's not popular. It's not mainstream in specialty coffee. It's not really like known to produce really exciting coffee. It's just like, oh, they can make coffee. The way I look at it is like, since it's not really a thing that's been going on for a long time, say, for example, in Africa or like in the Latin American countries, is new. It's kind of exciting because it's new. Can you grow really good coffee there? I don't have any other, stats about this kind of green or this coffee, except for what is written here. And I think this is a roast date on February 18th. $18.99. One of you asked about pricing. We'll get into that. I think that's a really interesting and I think informative video to do. Why a coffee would be $18.99. I sell coffee at $19 or something like that, around there. Yeah, we'll get into that. But anyway, so this coffee is a wash process, a medium light roast. And I was just hella curious, like, what does coffee from China taste like, I mean, they're purveyors of tea. Like, that's, I guess, I don't know if that's where it started, but like tea's huge over there in China, right? So the growing of, I think, tea and coffee could maybe be similar. I don't know anything about tea, but they're stepping into coffee. So we've got a medium light body, and their tasting notes are oolong tea, toasted sugar cane, date, like a date, I guess, and red apple. Now, I don't know anything about this roaster either, so I only want to say good things, but if I only want to highlight the best of what this is, so I'm not trying to, like, say anything bad or anything like that. I just want to give an honest take of, just my opinion, right? And if you ever come across these roasters, and it takes a lot, I just let go of the idea of having a coffee business, and I was checking their stuff out after I made my decision, actually, and just marveling at, to get to that point in their career as a roaster. So everything that I say here, you know, don't take it as like a review, but just, you know, let's talk about the discussion of coffee from China. Let's cup it. Just for curiosity's sake, I have some sample of a production roast of a Mr. Pablo for espresso. So I have a Mr. Pablo that I think is great for pour over. It's roasted very light. And then I have a Mr. Pablo espresso, which is roasted a little bit darker. I would call it light medium, medium light. And we're going to cup that. I roasted this on the 25th. So I think this could be a pretty good, like, I guess, time comparison. Taste comparison, probably not. Background, before we get to start cupping, I've already cupped this. And my initial reaction was, even though it says it's a medium light roast, I did not see that in the color of the bean. I'll show you guys. I thought it was very dark. Even oils present on the bean. Let's go with 12. And we'll pop some in the grinder to prime it. Super duper dark, I'd say, in comparison to maybe this, right? You can kind of see that. And we'll talk about why I think they made that decision as a roaster. But yeah, some oils are becoming more present here on the bean. The shape of the bean is not totally swelled. It is looking like a light medium roast, except that there's oils present on the bean. So that's interesting. I would love to see like what this roast curve looks like. And I would love to dig in and kind of nerd out on like what the, you know, how did you roast this guy? Why is it doing this? It could also just be this coffee exhibiting oils easily. Don't know. Okay. So this is an organic coffee from the Oolong region. So let's check out actually where that is, like on the map. The best coffees are grown near where? The coffee belt, range from the equator up and down from the equator, right? So you can look that up. I'll link it in the description if you don't know. It's a mountain peak, says Google, in the Chang Autonomous Prefecture, China. Okay, let's see how far this guy is from the equator. It's kind of in line with Japan, laterally on the map here, just to the just above Myanmar. Okay, so it's in the mountains. So we're trying to grow this coffee in a more higher elevation, right? To help the coffee struggle a little bit so that it can create some character and develop some cool tasting notes. It's like wine, you know, when you have wine that's growing in sort of a like a challenging environment, it tends to have more character and tends to have more flavor, right? More layers and more depth of flavor. But yeah, I'd say it's above the coffee belt. Not in the coffee belt. Let's see this in relation to Hawaii. Yeah, it's further along, farther from the equator than Hawaii, which to me, like when people buy Kona coffee, it's very overpriced and maybe a little bit overrated in terms of like equating taste to price. Possibly. I haven't tried like every single coffee from Hawaii, but it's because it's difficult to grow. And it just goes back to supply and demand. So it's not necessarily the best tasting. It's just that it's hard to get. So in that sense, in that strict sense, that's what makes it so expensive. And sometimes people think, you know, when something's really expensive, it must be very good. And people can maybe cling to and maybe tribe up on, you know, it's Kona coffee, the brand of Kona coffee, versus really tasting the coffee for what it is, and let's judge it there, and then let's price it there. So price, which is really interesting that, you know, one of you guys brought up price, is like, it's not always based on, it's not always telling you a certain thing. There's other things in play in terms of how coffee is priced, which I find really interesting, you know, in terms of like, well, how do I price my coffee? How should I price my coffee? Should is like a, you know, we're judging others, but like, should coffee people like Kona Coffee charge a crap ton for their coffee? Maybe it just cost a lot, you know, to produce. But because they can do it and people actually pay for it because they can market the brand of Kona coffee or coffee from Hawaii, when it's not necessarily that. To me, when I tried it, and I've tried a good amount of coffee from Hawaii because we had so many weddings there when I used to shoot, and I was like, nah, it's your standard. I won't kick you out of bed, but like it's your standard medium roast coffee, kind of almost too dark coffee to me. And if I'm comparing that to say what the SEA labels as a 93, 94, 95 point coffee, like a geisha, yeah, it doesn't hold a candle to that. And that's why you won't see a lot of Hawaiian coffees being served in a specialty coffee environment where things are judged based on flavor, right? Okay, anyway, it's not a soapbox, all right? I'm not judging. I'm just saying, like, those are my observations. All right, so let's cup this guy, Bordeaux from China. You're wrong. I've already cupped it. I think it's darker than what they say, and we'll talk about that too. So let's get this going. I find that if you give your coffee like a little shake, it dislodges a lot, not all, but a lot of the static. When I cupped this a couple days ago, to me it was quite dark, not true to what a medium light roast would taste like. If you said medium dark, I would have been okay, so medium light. So why do I have an issue with that? It's just like, well, I think I try really hard to put exactly what I'm experiencing, observing, tasting, all that stuff. I try to be really true to what I'm experiencing, and I try to put that on the label of our coffee. This was when I was, period. No other pretenses. I was like, this is what, I'm kidding, in a production roast, right? So I try not to put the sample roast notes on the bag because there's a difference. Like sample roasting, I always have to wait till I do a full production of my own roast and then put the tasting notes on the bag because I think it's more truthful. I think it's truthful, more truthful, because I'm sure this is true in some instances. Okay. And even you look at the crust here, it's quite dark. Anyway, so I'm just saying I try to be true to what I'm seeing and exhibiting and trying to do here as a roaster. And so when other roasters are not doing that, I think what happens is it's not a knock on them, but I think it gets maybe confusing, or expectations are always like kind of in a tizzel for consumers. And I think that's like with everything, right? It's like, well, Levi's can make this cut of jean and it says I'm a size 32 waist. And then I go to this other brand who maybe, I don't know, for whatever reason, their measuring tape is different. But their size 32 is tighter. Things like that, right? So those are just things I think that are apparent in any industry when style comes into play. And that's fine. But I think what maybe can deter a consumer from trying something new, like me, I was curious about this Chinese coffee, and you say it's a medium light roast, so I'm expecting something not to be dark, because for sure if it said medium dark, I wouldn't have gone for it. But I'm going to risk $18.99 plus tax to try it, right? So this gamble or this risk of this money, which I don't think that's cheap. I don't think what I charge for my coffee is cheap, but I also believe in what I charge. And we'll get into that and why. I'll back that up. So yeah, just for this is why I don't go to cafes, because sometimes, more often than not, I get disappointed. Now let's talk about why there's a disappointment. So I'm expecting this. This is going to go off in a minute. Let's break the crust and we'll continue. Okay. It's nice. It's dried berries. It's graham crackers. It's Yeah, dates. There's like a sweet candied dried component to it. So my preference as a coffee drinker is that of a sort of typical specialty coffee person who likes acidic, juicy fruit bomb cups, okay? Definitely I'm not going for anything pretty dark because I drink my coffee black. I don't put cream and sugar in it. And so when I'm looking at coffee and I'm trying to buy with education and I'm looking at the tasting notes, I'm hoping that the red apple's there, the dates are there, the oolong tea note, which was signified to me that it was, you know, more on the light side. You said medium light, so I'm like, cool. I feel like it's still going to be within my wheelhouse to appreciate versus being dark. And then now I'm like, I'm not motivated to drink this coffee, you know, because that's not what I wanted. You told me light, medium light, and I'm getting medium dark. So that's an issue, I think, for a consumer who's spending 20 bucks on a cup of coffee. And to that, when I was in their coffee, you know, I don't want to like rag on it, but it's like I ordered an $8 geisha from Colombia pour over. Yeah, it almost tasted the same as this. A little just too dark and boring and bland. Like just definitely not what I was expecting for an $8 cup of coffee. Yeah, so there's that. And that discovery has led me to the decision of not going there anymore. I think that's an issue, but we'll talk about why I think they have gone that way. Whereas like, it's not that I don't think their roasters are capable of roasting something to my taste preference, which is, you know, specialty coffee, maybe the coffee snobs. It's not that I don't think that they're capable of that. I think that they're just choosing a wider market to appease, which likes this type of roast, which is more people like the medium dark because they're going to put cream and sugar. So that when somebody like me walks in, it's like a losing battle. So I get that, but that sucks for me when I want to go out and be served and not have to serve myself all the time. This is going to be too hot right now. Do you know what I'm saying? You know, I don't know if I'm alone in that, but that's a big reason why I don't go to cafes. And I never got into cafe culture because I guess I'm just so particular and maybe a little bit too judgmental. But I think there's certainly no shade in that because they're paying their bills. Obviously, they have a cafe and a roastery and they're doing their thing and it looks like, and they had people just like hanging out. I don't know. Most of them weren't drinking coffee. They were mostly on their computer. So I don't want my opinion to taint anybody else's. Like people should just go discover for themselves, right? But I think it's still a valid topic to talk about here, but not to badmouth or try to like bring anybody's business down, right? That's not my intention. But I do want to talk about like, hey, I think we should always be putting the right thing on the label. Or if I just got a bum bag, if I just got a bad batch, I think we should also talk about like putting that and labeling it something else because that's not what it is, you know? Yeah, and just calling it what it is. Like this batch is too dark to be medium light. So quality control, right? But sometimes maybe they were like me and they were like, I had no idea I was roasting that dark. There's that too, right? Damn, it's tough. Ooh. Okay, so if you like heavy bodies and you like the nostalgic bitterness of coffee, this coffee is doing that. Now let's talk about oolong teas out there. Okay, I could see the oolong tea note if you steeped the oolong tea bag for longer than intended. So what happens when you steep tea for longer than intended? Typically, it gets bitter, it gets a little thicker, But I think bitter and astringency is the most, which is a harsh taste in this instance, comes out. Roasty, no red apple for me. Maybe really, 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 really cooked down apples. Red apples in that there's no zing to it. So yes, I would say versus they picked the right apple for sure. It's not a green apple. It's definitely a red apple where it's more on the sweet side, not on the like punchy side. Does that make sense? Toasted sugar cane. I would say heavily toasted sugar cane, getting to almost like that burnt sugar, because there is a burnt element here. I'm gonna have to watch my recording. It's not terrible, okay? For sure, this is a solid medium roast. There's a medium dark finish to it in that it has this bitterness that lingers in my mouth. So I'd call that medium dark. My Rasuna does that at medium dark, but people like that. So I'm not gonna yuck your yum on a medium dark roast, but don't call it medium light. That's just my thing. Like if it's medium dark or it's true medium or whatever it is, I don't think you can call this medium light. It's just got too much roastiness and too much of that bitterness that comes out in darker roasts. But there's nothing wrong with it. I think a lot of people would like this coffee. I think this coffee serves more people and makes more money. And I think that's the reason why this roaster chose to do this. But, you know, we should call it what it is, for sure. That way, when someone like me walks into your cafe, and I'm not trying to come in there and be like, trying to give you a hard time. You know, like, I just want to trust your I just want to trust your labeling. I want to trust your packaging and all that stuff. I want to be wowed by that. And I just want to discover it. But if that discovery leads me to something that isn't true, I think what that does, it's not that I like hate this roaster. It just chips away at the trust that I'm trying to formulate with this business and cafe. Because the next time I'm out in the area of Bordeaux, I'm probably not going to get another coffee from there. And that is the repercussion of the first introduction with your coffee not being meaningful or not being impactful but just not being impactful for me or effective for me. So I don't know. That's interesting. That's a big reason why I don't go to cafes. And most of the time I'm just here working and I work from home. So it's not often that I leave my home. And when I do, and when I try to buy something and discover something new, and I get disappointed, and I'm not like super disappointed, like I'll give this to my sister because honestly, it's just I'm not motivated to drink it beyond the fact that I paid $20 something for it. It's not what I wanted. It's not bad, but it's not what I wanted and what I was expecting here on the label, okay? So that's a big difference. Again, this is not me like ragging on this roaster. I think I understand why the decisions are made or how this disconnect could happen between what you're saying it is and what you're giving me in the bag. And like, hopefully I am doing the same where I'm like, I'm roasting this coffee to the best of my ability and hopefully, period, right? Like just hopefully whatever I put on my bag, I'm doing that, and when I'm roasting and I'm delivering exactly what I say I'm going to deliver, or, you know, over deliver if I can. Not enough time to cup this, I'm afraid. I don't know. I just had some thoughts about it, in my opinion, just my opinion, okay? Yeah. Anyway, interesting thoughts, comments, put them in the comments. We'll see you in the next one. Bye.